Hello, my sober lovelies. Before we dive in, I'm really excited to announce my group coaching program for women is live, and you can join now. So excited for this because let's be real here. Quitting drinking isn't just about saying no to the glass of wine or booze. It's about what comes after. All the fear, the boredom, the late night anxiety, and the stories you've been telling yourself for years. And that's where my Rewired Sober group coaching program for women comes in. It's only $247. I'm being totally transparent on the price. It's for 3 months, and you'll learn how to shift your mindset, build habits that actually stick, and question the core beliefs that have been keeping you stuck, and find healthier ways to deal with that loneliness and that now what feeling. The best part is you don't have to do it alone. We'll have live group coaching sessions weekly, and there'll be a bunch of women walking through it with you. It's not another cookie cutter sobriety program for mommy vloggers. It's neuroscience meets real life, and it's designed for women to help you not just stay sober, but actually feel good living sober. You can join anytime, and I'd love to see you on the inside. So start today, get instant access. The link's in the show notes. Hey there, and welcome to You've Been Selected. I'm your host, Kate Vitella, and something tells me you didn't just stumble across this podcast by accident. Maybe, just maybe, you've been called here, like selected by the universe for something more. So let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of You've Been Selected. I'm your host, Kate Vitella, and today we are diving into something that's near and dear to my heart, something that holds a lot of women back from true healing and freedom in sobriety. We're calling it the sister wound. So Sarah is a board-certified nurse coach. She's a yoga instructor and a wife and mama to 3 boys. In 2019, Sarah began her own personal journey after the loss of her beautiful sister, Jennifer. She describes this journey as one of going from health to healing. And I love that. She describes it as a struggle of triumph and humility and discovery and pain. And Sarah says she started to look inward to heal the parts of herself that were filled with shame, regret, and self-criticism, beginning what she calls the journey through. She is the owner of a Journey Through life coaching and the co-creator of the group Sisterhood Rising. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you, Kate. I'm so excited, and I'm just so honored to be a guest on your podcast. Thank you for having me.
Yes. So Sarah is also a friend of mine, a board-certified nurse coach like me, and we have been on retreat together. We've been training together, and I just look back through our text feed and oh my God, I laugh so hard.
I laughed so hard. It's
So
good
good.
stuff. It's good stuff.
So good. So good. And our video is on, but I'm probably not going to show it because talk about sister wound. I'm really comfortable with other women now. But before we turned the video on, I was like, I probably should at least clear the goobers out of my eyes and like
Same.
put a bra on. And like, I don't want you staring down the barrel of a booger in my nose.
I am too. You know what? That's his comfort. We've come a long way.
We've come a long way. So I am really, first, I want you to introduce to me what are sister wounds and where did this all start?
Yeah, no, good question. And let me just say too that by no means am I like an expert in this. What I would kind of consider myself to be is somebody who's just very, very passionate about this work. I've done the research on the sister wound, really because it was something that affected and impacted my life starting a very, very long time ago. And so what is it? Because people are starting to hear more about this now. Maybe they've heard about the mother wound, that kind of thing. But essentially, the sister wound is the pain that women feel when they have been betrayed, they mistrust, or have been wronged by another woman. And it is really part of what's called the Trinity wounds, which is the sister wound, the mother wound, and the witch wound, if you've heard of any of those. And they're all very, very, very much related, but they are all very different in terms of their origin. The sister wound really started, if you were to do the research on it, it dates back hundreds of years. It's a very ancient wound. And it's started with the creation, I guess you could say, of the patriarchy, that patriarchal system. Prior to that, women would dance together, sing together, they were in community together, they would, be gathering medicine in the woods, and they would just be in community and had a really great strong bond and connection. And when this particular structure took over, women were sort of, and men too, by the way, they were all in community together, but they started to get disbanded and that relationship began to break. Women were pitted against one another. They had to compete for status. They had to compete for relationships. They had to, they were in much more competition with one another, which in some ways meant survival, right? And so fast forward several hundred years, one could argue that we're all sort of born with sister wounding now. It's so deep in our society. These types of manifestations are so normal as part of our society now that we're all kind of born into some of this wounding. And so the manifestations of the sister wound, depending on the research you do, you might find some different wording, but essentially the manifestations that result because of this sister wounding are judgment, betrayal and mistrust, comparison, which is arguably the most pervasive, jealousy, and then abandonment and rejection. And so I'm going to put it this way. For a lot of women, sometimes they feel this deep, deep mistrust of women, this deep fear of women. Women are the source of pain in their life, or they are seen as the enemy, I guess you could say. And then other women too might also feel these things about women, but at the same time, there's like this simultaneous deep longing for connection with them.
Yeah.
So it's this felt and unfelt, seen and unseen wounding, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And so that's essentially the history of the sister wound.
Wow, that's so fascinating. I
Hmm.
knew that, I mean, I knew high level, but I didn't know that part. So, and it's so interesting because yes, the patriarchy, shocker, but
Hmm.
also so much of what you describe, it just goes on today. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going on as we speak. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to talk about the origins of this. Part of your story, a big part of your story, how you got into coaching and
Yeah.
self-discovery was the loss of your own sister. And I know you said this isn't a sister in the family sense, Will you explain a little bit about that? Like, take me back a little bit.
Yeah. So, like you said, so the sister wound, because a lot of people they'll say, well, I don't have a sister. So, how can I have the wound?
Yeah.
The sister wound is sisterhood, right? So,
Yeah.
relationships amongst women, which could also include biological siblings as well. But my sister also, so Jennifer, she has a beautiful yet tragic story. And, it dates back to childhood with a lot of her own wounding and how she was treated by, peers and that sort of thing too, as she struggled with weight, um, dealt with a lot of intense bullying growing up, which only sort of amplified some of the issues that she was dealing with. And over time, she developed I'll give you the very abbreviated version, but like I said, she just a lifetime of bullying and verbal abuse, if you will, by peers, which then led her to in the early 2000s, she had a surgical procedure. She had gastric bypass and then became addicted to painkillers. And that lasted for several years. And then, of course, during this addiction, during this thing that she was experiencing, led to some damaged relationships, right? But then also kind of took her down her own spiral, and ultimately became reliant on alcohol after painkillers were no longer an option for her, became reliant on alcohol, and then ultimately, again, lost her life in 2019. She did not overdose. She died of liver failure. Um, but again, I'm shrinking about 40 or 38 years into, just a few seconds, but her story started with a lot of wounding and then ended with some addiction, which took her life. And the work that I do is all in spirit of her and wanting to help individuals rebuild relationships and build supportive communities around everybody.
Yeah, that's a big reason why I wanted to have you on the pod was you have this story of a family member, involving addiction, and it so closely relates to so many of us, what we go through, how we developed an addiction to alcohol or painkillers, how we started to numb in the first place. I told bits of my personal story, and I described, high school as being a sort of a pick-me girl, like, standing on the sidelines, waiting for someone to choose me.
Yeah.
And yes, I had the high school bullying, but it wasn't anything egregious. However, I can just imagine this, and my heart just aches for your sister and for you because I know exactly how this
Mhm.
feels.
Yeah.
And it really took me down a dark path. Now, that's no excuse for me, but it took me down a dark path in terms of my drinking, and you don't drink. I was thinking of how I would introduce you. This is a podcast on, mostly sobriety and personal development, and
Mhm.
um, I'm curious about your relationship with alcohol.
Yeah, it's interesting too because I mean, I have family members who are, who drink. My dad drank, my sister, of course, drank. Um, it honestly, and I don't know if it's just something that was subconscious, but it was something that I just never did. I was actually that person in high school who I was so afraid of getting in trouble. I was so nervous. I had such high anxiety about things and perfectionism that I looked at drinking as sort of this thing that was going to get me in trouble.
Yeah.
I was going to get a consumption ticket or an underage or whatever. And so I was just, I think it was more out of fear, or I don't know if I was just seeing, around me, the people that were drinking and just the effect it was having on them. And just subconsciously, I was not called or drawn to it. But it was in stark contrast with people very, very close to me in my family. I had my own other, things that I navigated, but yeah, alcohol, I think I just had this like subconscious relationship with it where it just was something that I just stood back from, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, interestingly too, so Jenny, she had her, I guess what you would call like an addictive personality, right? So be it food, be it painkillers, be it alcohol. Um, and that was, I believe, her way of numbing, of coping. And some of these substances, of course, like they're hard to walk away from. And ultimately, it took her life. And so, and I think that I saw some of that stuff growing up too. That maybe just at a young age, I was sensitive to it
Mhm.
and I picked up on it,
Yeah.
and it was enough for me to know that, "Hey, this I'm scared of this," you know? But that is not the case for many people in my life.
Yeah. I can't say as I went down that path. I
Mhm.
didn't drink in high school either, but, yeah, I think when people say maybe they have an addictive personality, I can understand that, but I think of Gabor Mate when he says, "Let's not ask why the addiction, but why the pain."
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
see when I picture Jenny, someone who just had a lot of pain and a lot of wounds and found something to numb and soothe. And so much of addiction is just this basic human self soothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's go back to the sister wound and the group, because another thing that came up for me when I saw that you were putting together workshops on this was
Yeah.
a huge part of what I see in both group coaching, meetings for women, as well as my one-on-one practice is women will commonly tell me that they're too afraid to say something in the group. It's all women. We're
Yeah.
all in recovery. We're all,
Mhm.
supposed to be there as these vulnerable, exposed women.
Yeah.
And yet, so many times I find people are so afraid to even share, really even go there. And it just blocks us from getting to know each other, from the vulnerability,
Yeah.
from the healing.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to kind of elaborate on that part of it. Like how how do you see this playing into something like a sobriety meeting where vulnerability and trusting your sister
Mhm.
is like
Mhm.
half the battle?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna take you through a couple things. So I wanna start by talking about some of the workshops like you mentioned that we lead. So for a lot of people, this concept is new as far as having a name, right? The sister wound. For most of us, I would say that the manifestations and the feelings involved are not. We all know what it feels like to be
Yeah.
judgy and to be betrayed and have jealousy and all those kinds of things. That's not new. But giving it a name for a lot of people is new. And so what we do in these workshops, my partner Brooke and I, we have conversations about the sister wound, but then we make it real. So we talk through the history of it, and then we break down these manifestations and how they show up in someone's life. But then also at the same time, talk about the impact and make it real for people to say, yes, that is me. I guess I never thought of it that way. It's because again, it's so subconscious, it's so deep, it's so rooted. And then we talk very high level about ways that we can begin to heal this wound. Because I will say this, there's 3 ways that you can really think about healing the sister wound, which was originally the name of our group space. It's Sisterhood Rising, like you mentioned, but it started out as healing the sister wound. And if you do the research, that's the name of it. But to ultimately heal sister wounds, it's really kind of 3 things. And the first one is we have to acknowledge that it exists. We
Mhm.
have to acknowledge that it exists, but then also really take some radical responsibility that we do it. We are also people that are part of the wounding, right? We
Yeah,
do
we
these things.
perpetuate
We
it.
perpetuate it. And so acknowledging its existence. The second thing is you have to be in community. And if you think about it, like I tell our group spaces too, it's like in order to heal sister wounds, you have to be with your sisters, right? You have to be with women. And so you have to be in community and build a community around you to do this work. And then the third thing is really to take action. Because we can say all day long and come to the workshops and learn about it. And, that's great. That sounds wonderful. But then to be able to take the action to do it. And so that's what we talk about in the workshops is really give that background information and give it a name and bring it forward. And then we have extended group spaces. Right now, the one that we have is 6 weeks long, and it could very well be longer, but it's 6 weeks long. And this is a platform that, or a space, I guess you could say, that we've built to to be in community, to do the community piece, because we've acknowledged it in the workshop, is to do the community piece and then to take the action. So we spend 6 weeks together in community with, there's 8 of us in there, and we bring in sometimes some guest speakers, but there are 8 of us in there. And each week has themes and different topics and conversations that we work on. And then we have actionable, like we are actually doing the work. And I will say that this takes, like, back to your point, doing this work, you have to maintain a level of vulnerability because it's scary and it's hard work.
I wanted to pause you for a second here. You said the first thing is that you have to acknowledge that you're part of it. And
Mhm.
I'm super curious. Is this part hard to get past this? Like, do a lot of women really balk at, "Oh, no, 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 I'm supportive of all women. I go queen,"
Mhm. Mhm.
Because it
Mhm.
seems like you don't see a lot of women on the internet being like, "Oh, yeah, I love to cut a bitch down." I mean,
Mhm,
right? We
mhm.
all talk about how we're so women inspire women, hashtag women's empowerment.
Yeah.
But are we really doing that?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So I will go back to that and say doing this work, it requires us to maintain a level of vulnerability, but then it also requires us to do some radical self-reflection and
Ooh.
to have a level of some really radical self-awareness. So all of those things that you said, I could easily say, but I know, and I'm doing the work. Like I'm still actively doing this work. But can I sit and really ask myself when something's coming up for me, where is this coming from? Because I still get triggered. I still have things that come up where I'm like, before I would just be avoidant and judgy. Judgment was my biggest one.
Yeah.
And I would be very standoffish or shut down or, insert response. But then when I started to actually do the work, get vulnerable, get curious, and get really radically self-aware, I was like, where in me is this response coming from? What is the message here from myself? And oftentimes it was, I'm feeling a sense of lack. I'm feeling a sense of less than or better than or whatever it may be. That's the judgment piece. But what is it about this other woman that's triggering this response in me? Is and it sometimes, and oftentimes it ends up it's not even about her. It's about the feeling she's making me have in the moment. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I mean, our triggers are our greatest teachers, right? So
Yeah.
when you say radical, like,
Hmm.
what is that? Two coaches on a podcast. Let's explore that.
Yeah.
What do you mean by the word radical?
Yeah. Like some really intense, authentic, genuine, like, let's really sit with this and be very intentional and be really open to feeling the shit, right?
Do you mean sitting with a trigger? Like, oh my God, that's triggering the
Mhm.
shit out of me? Like,
Mhm. Yeah, because the natural response for many people is to react,
yeah.
to formulate an opinion,
Oh, I do.
right? Same.
And I'll tell you.
Yep, exactly. Rather than sit with it because it's gross to sit with it,
I
right?
don't
Nobody
want to
likes
sit
to
with it.
no one
Yeah.
wants to sit in the shit for a while, but sitting with it and really reflecting, where is this coming from? And that's where that you have to maintain that level of vulnerability to say, "Hey, th in some cases, like, this is actually my BS right
Hmm.
now. This woman is just triggering me to feel it.
Yeah.
It's not even about her. It's about me."
Yeah.
Um, because again, as we know, as you know, triggers they're time travel. We're feeling something that happened to us before. And keep in mind too, I just want to mention that this sister wounding and this feeling, we talked about rejection and belonging and abandonment. This is tribal stuff. I mean, when you think about it, back thousands of years ago, if you didn't belong, that could mean you were killed.
Yeah, that would mean you couldn't protect your health
Right.
and your safety and your food and
Yeah.
your shelter. It was
It's so
prime yeah,
it meant survival.
for
And so if you
sure.
think about it now, if you don't belong to the group, if you're outcasted, if you're rejected, there's a sense of like doom.
For
Right?
sure.
I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving, all of these things. And so, again, going back to your original question, radical responsibility and self-awareness is just being really intentional and having this powerful conversation with yourself and being like willing and open and vulnerable to take on some of that accountability. And so again, kind of tagging on to that, maybe that's starting with a coach. Maybe there's doing some of your own work here too, but ultimately with sister wounding, you have to be in community and with women that are safe, but then also too, I mean, there's this element too where we're kind of going into this with feeling like women aren't safe,
Yeah.
but you have to build the evidence that women collectively are not unsafe. I mean, there are unsafe people, right? I mean,
Yes.
there's some women that are unsafe, men, whatever. But as a collective, women are not unsafe and are not to not be trusted, if that makes sense. And so it requires that vulnerability to step into some of those spaces, to shed some of those layers, to begin to listen to other people's stories, because the story sharing and the experience sharing, there's so much perspective that's gained. There's a lot of like, oh, me too, because one of the impacts of these comparison wounds and this rejection wound is isolation. We become so isolated. Like, well, I just don't hang out with women, or I just stay, but I keep to myself, or whatever. And that can lead to more withdrawal and more isolation. And so, how can you get yourself to that place where you can start to be in community, build trust, build evidence of safety, and then begin to heal? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, they say, addiction is really a disease of separation,
Yeah.
and, I'm curious about when you say build community and take action,
Hmm.
does that mean to show up to the group and try to be vulnerable?
It could. It could. It's really what does that mean for you? And so one way, like Brooke and I have done, is we have created the group. We have
Yeah, yeah,
created the space. For some people, I mean, I've been in a number of circles just this year for different reasons. And each time I'm in circle with women, I've learned something, or I could even say that I've shed something, or I have um, gotten a new perspective, or whatever that is. And that has just led to further and further, almost like a desire to continue to do it.
yeah,
And so it could really mean whatever that is to you. But one way is to show up to things, to be involved in something. It doesn't have to be this massive group, this massive retreat. It could just be joining a group or whatever that is, where other women are there to start kind of building that trust and that safety.
yeah, yeah, because here's the problem, especially in sobriety groups, when we don't open up, when we hold back our fear of being judged, we're actually like blocking ourselves
Yeah.
from one of the most important parts of healing. And I would argue when I first started working with a mentor in sobriety, the female relationship, the sisterhood of being able to talk with another woman and have her fully accept me and love me and know all my shit, know all my dark secrets
Mm-hmm.
and be there for me. That
Hmm.
part of it was like 50% of the healing of getting
Yeah.
sober and in recovery.
Yeah.
That's why this is so important to me.
It's so important. And let me just say too that one of the things I want to be clear on, that some people, if there's an assumption made, one thing that I want to be super clear on is that when we talk about healing the sister wound, and in these spaces that we're in, the ultimate goal is not to have everybody be best friends, because we are all different. I mean, we are different people. We have different, all these things. And so the goal is not to have everybody be best friends and trust everybody and all that kind of thing. The goal is to not have the fear of
Yeah.
women,
Okay.
and to know that women can be trusted, and to know and to be empowered to have these relationships and to step forward. And so again, it's not to say that we're going to cure the entire collective and everybody's going to be friends and everybody's going to get along. It's to create safety, and to know that women are not collectively needing to be feared.
I love that. I love the concept of just really healing the fear.
Mhm.
Um, because when we relate to each other, it's not just the pain, it's also that courage it takes to keep going because there's like this unspoken bond that forms.
Mhm.
I see you, I get you, I've
Mhm.
been there too. And it normalizes those fears and those feelings of separation. And it's so incredibly healing. But this concept isn't something that we commonly research and talk about at this level.
No.
We talk about women being catty and judgy and bitchy and comparing. And my husband and I were just talking about he and I going to fashion shows together. And I said, well, I will never wear the same dress as I wore before on the red carpet. And here he is wearing the same suit at every show in every photo. And he was like, men don't care. And, I just was thinking about us taping this podcast and thinking about all the ways that women interact and all the ways we see each
Mhm.
other, and really all the ways that we are afraid of
Mhm.
each other.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. So I found my first one-on-one coach because of the work she was doing in the sister wound. I didn't have a name for it, but I knew that was the kind of work that I wanted to do. And I've essentially made it like my passion project and my life's work at this point because I had such, I don't even want to say broken relationships with women growing up, but I had so much comparison. I had so much judgment of myself, and it impacted my entire life. And so some of the stuff happened to me, but some of that stuff was internalized. And so had I known this 30 years ago, I'd be in such a different place. And then I want to go back to what you asked too about, the community and the actions. We talked about the community part, but the action piece is really, again, where you have to step into that vulnerability and take the action. And sometimes that's having some difficult conversations with yourself. It could be having some really brave conversations with a woman in your life. And there's a level of confidence that can come with doing this work, knowing that, you know, we're not going to be perfect. We're not going to nail it every time. We're human and we have, we're,
Nailed it.
right. We're human. And there's going to be times where you might judge or you might compare or, you might behave in a way that's not highest self that might betray somebody. But I think that if we can at least get to a point where we can recognize it, own it, and know and not project it onto someone else, like, hey, what is the lesson here for me?
Yeah.
Um, that's the inner work
Yeah.
because I'm not out to heal her. I'm out to heal me.
Yeah.
And then hopefully by proxy, we can start to heal each other, you know? And so that's really another thing that I want to be clear on is that we're gonna mess up,
Yeah.
but how can we mess up better? How can we take accountability? How can we reflect and say, okay, what was my role in this? Is this really her or is this me? Is this both of us? Can we have a conversation about this rather than fuck you, I'm done, you're dangerous, I
Yeah.
hate you because you actually made me feel shame or you made me feel embarrassed or you made me feel guilty or whatever the word is. So the action piece is really about taking some really vulnerable, scary, but courageous steps.
Do you think that, and this is just maybe in your opinion and also from working with women and doing this work, do you think women trigger the shit out of each other?
I do. I think that there is a lot of that. And because of the wounding,
Yeah.
because of the sister wounding. And there's a lot of other factors, of course, environment and background and, what you've experienced and all those kinds of things. But yeah, I do. I think, like I said, that arguably in the research that I've done, the biggest one is the comparison, that manifestation of where we get comparative and we compete with each other.
How can we not compare and compete though? I mean,
Hmm.
sometimes it feels like, when I look at my body and my dress and my appearance or my career, when I look at the essence of my physical self, because, very clearly we are
Hmm.
spiritual beings, but when I look at my physical self, the only way I know how to determine if I'm good, bad, or ugly is by comparing to another woman.
And if you think about that, what a societal thing. Like, what is beauty?
Yes.
Well, what does it mean to be perfect or beautiful or on top?
Yeah.
What a conditioned thing. It That's what happens, but that's how it works. Is we're not only physical appearance is probably one of the biggest ones, but we compare relationships, we compare careers, we compare marriage, we compare status. Um, it's pervasive and it's arguably one of the hardest ones to heal from. But when we can start to have authentic connections, when we can start to have trusting, supportive connections and surround ourselves with that, but also be that is really the steps that we can take to get there. Because again, ultimately what we're doing is we're healing ourselves. We can't heal by proxy, hopefully, we can lead by example. But it really starts with us. And like I said, there's a level of confidence that comes with this work to know that even if I'm being judged, by somebody. Um, if somebody's being catty towards me, is recognizing that, hey, sometimes that's their work to do. It's not a reflection of me, but also taking the responsibility to say, is this something I need to work on? Like, or am I just bypassing it? Like, oh, it's their work to do, not mine. That's the radical responsibility part. Where is it like, mm, is it? Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. That's so good. That's so
Yeah.
key.
And enter the group space that we have, because a lot of people, they're like, I can't do this by myself,
No.
or I don't know how to do this. So coaches like you and I, group coaching, this is a place where you can have that support. This
Yeah.
is a place where you can have somebody hold you accountable, or to have you maybe look in the mirror and say, hey, like, what's coming up for you? You know? So this is it's not the only way, but this is kind of going back to your original question, like how can women in this particular, women in sobriety, or, women just kind of in general, how can I do this? For some people, it takes a level of support, and coaching can be really instrumental in that.
Yeah, sort of like how you have a day with a group of friends you really trust and you really love and connect with, and you can be honest and vulnerable with. You spend a day with them, or maybe you go on a girls' trip, or
Hmm.
you do some adventure with your friends, and you
Yeah.
come back refreshed and
Yes.
rejuvenated
Yeah.
and inspired and motivated. And I can imagine how going into a group setting like this, I
Hmm.
mean, even, sobriety meetings that are strictly females coming together, you leave and you just feel like on top of the world
Yeah.
if you can be vulnerable and receive other people's vulnerability without judgment. It's incredibly healing.
Incredibly healing. Yeah. And just being okay with not with knowing that, hey, this is my lane, this is your lane. We're not going to be best friends, but I'm good with you and you're good with me, rather than having this friction, this like conditioned need to be comparative, or this conditioned need to judge. Like,
Yeah.
I'm better than, I'm less than, because, or it's just like, you do you and I'll do me, you know?
And we can support each other.
We can support each other. Yes. And so women are stronger together.
Yeah.
Collectively. We are, and that was feared 100 years ago when it was seen how powerful women are when they are in community together. That was scary,
It's
right?
still fucking
It's
scary.
still scary, and so we are stronger together, and my goal and my hope and my vision, my life's work, if you will, is to really start to rebuild that bond that was always there, but just has, kinda disappeared a little bit.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing all this. We are going to wrap it up here, but where can people find you if they want to continue this type of work with you? And Brooke, of course.
Yeah, so I do one-on-one coaching, and what sort of my area of passion or niche, if you will, is working on confidence, building confidence. If you are stuck, if you're feeling stuck in your life, looking for purpose and meaning, but maybe more specifically, you don't have the confidence to take that next step, or you don't feel worthy or deserving. That's who I really feel called to work with and drawn to work with, is that
Mhm.
confidence piece, because that's frankly who I needed. I needed
Yeah. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
and when I joined my own confidence circle, that was really pivotal for me. And so one-on-one coaching, or if you're also interested in learning more about the sister wound work that Brooke and I do, all of that is on my website, which is the Journey TC. So the Journey Through Coaching, thejourneytc.com. And that is also my email. So Sarah at thejourneytc.com. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram as just my name, Sarah Morgando. But yeah, I mean, this is my passion project, and I'm continuing to learn and research and do all the things too. But um, we always know that as coaches, we really like to coach around stuff that we needed, right?
For sure. We are best positioned to serve the person we once were.
Yeah. Oh, this was such a good conversation, Kate. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for tuning in. You can find me on my website at katevitella.com. You can also connect with me on Instagram at Kate Vitella. I would love to hear from you. Any feedback or questions, shoot me a note. So until next time, peace within and bullshit out.